What's up, guys? I'm going to talk about skill acquisition some more. So, I recently made a video talking about how motor learning is largely subconscious. It's not thoughtful, it just comes through repetition. But I also pointed out that this does not mean that we should never think about technique or coach technique, for any movement or any person, right? That would be way too extreme. So let's talk about what things make technique analysis or coaching more needed, right? And first of all, I would just say, if you're not just trying to complete a task, but you're trying to do it as well as possible, right? So I mentioned like getting dressed and how you've never had to think about the skill of that or the technique of that. But if there was a competition for getting dressed and undressed as fast as possible, then that probably would open the door for some technical considerations to be helpful. If something is really fast, right, like a golf swing, for example, as a relatively casual beginner type golfer, I have the experience of I do the takeaway and then I just like wake up on the other side of the swing, right? And I don't know what happened. It's like, it could be a great shot, it could be a terrible shot. Either way, I don't know why, okay? Because things are just happening too fast. It's hard to feel what's going on, hard to then correct it, right? Or hard to repeat it, all right? If something is maximal effort, that's going to make it a little harder to, control your mechanics perfectly. I think that opens the door for, some analysis, some coaching, some cues, that type of thing. If it's maximal effort and it's explosive, I think that really opens the door for, potential value in technical considerations. Wow, that's a terrible rep. All right, that's disappointing. There's a lot of reasons why somebody might have to examine their technique, consider their technique, be coached in their technique, more so with some movements than with others. Look at track and field. Triple jump. You wouldn't just tell somebody, all right, well, here's what triple jump looks like, go do it, and then just never adjust technique at all, okay? They could, maybe by just observing other people and continue to try, they might be able to stumble across decent technique over time, but you could certainly expedite the process with some good coaching, right? And then the other thing, when it comes to these maximal effort explosive things, particularly, triple jumps, kind of like an extreme activity, how many times can you actually repeat it at speed, right? Not that many. Like, how many times in a week are you going to triple jump with full approach? You can't do that many reps. You can't really literally just practice the thing all the time, okay? And a lot of the track events, like javelin, how often can you like full approach throw a javelin? Like, how many reps can you do in a day, or how many reps can you do in a week, in a month? It's not that many compared to some of the other skills that we acquire, like walking, right? So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why you might have to coach technique on something. Pole vault. I wouldn't just hand a kid a pole and be like, all right, go for it. Again, at some point somebody did do that, right? They just sort of like kept trying and figured it out. But yeah, I mean, you could certainly expedite the learning process with some technical guidance. There we go. After that video, a couple specific questions came up. So one was, are speed drills worthless? Right? And I mean, I will say, for learning technique, speed drills certainly can be worthless. Think of them more as exercises where you're at least getting a little bit of a physical stimulus. So a lot of speed drills have, fairly elastic foot contacts. And so you're getting elastic training volume, and if nothing else, you're warming up, right? So that's why I would say they're not generally worthless. But in terms of learning technique, yeah, I mean, oftentimes they can be. Like if they're not given to a person for a specific purpose, if you're not telling them what to feel and how that's going to translate to a sprint, if you're not identifying what drill needs to be done for which person, then yeah, a lot of times they're not going to be helpful for technique. Yeah, just like, blanket prescription of 10 different speed drills to a whole track team. Is that helpful for technique? I mean, I would argue like probably not, but it is a warm up and it is elastic training volume. Okay. But in terms of improving technique, I mean, you got to think of those as more like specialized tools, or another way to think of it would be like medicine, right? You don't just, if somebody's sick, you don't just give them all the medicines you can think of, right? You figure out what's wrong and you give them a specific medicine for that issue. Okay. So that's how I think speed drills should be viewed in terms of trying to improve technique. I have a couple drills that I do pretty universally with people, which are the high feet drill here and stiff leg here. Okay, but I view those as like warm-up exercises and a little bit of elastic training volume. Okay, I wouldn't say that they are always useful for technique. The high feet drill, if you add enough speed to it, that one I would say with some consistency tends to be helpful for technique, particularly for people that don't really have a max velocity background at all. Okay, so I got football or basketball guys coming in to learn how to sprint or whatever. Can be useful for that, but again, it depends on the person too. Sometimes the drill just doesn't click, that feel just doesn't translate over, and so then it just becomes, all right, well, we're still going to use it to warm up, but it's just not going to be a technical focus. Okay, so that's speed drills. Then the other one that came up was, I wonder how much this subconscious learning idea it applies to weightlifting. And this is my buddy Jan who mentioned this, and he said, you're kind of a testament to that because you have like a high level power snatch relative to how strong you are or are not, and you haven't had like formal weightlifting training, right? And yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But I mean, I definitely would say that you should have some technical considerations when doing the weightlifting movements. I wouldn't just hand somebody a bar and be like, all right, watch this guy snatch and then you do that, right? You would give them some more instruction. That being said, yeah, I mean, overcoaching is certainly still a possibility. And for me, I still like to have task completion be at the center of the learning process. So when it comes to cleans and snatches, for me, that's like throwing the bar as high as you can, right? That's kind of the central task of the weightlifting movements. If I'm teaching someone a clean or a snatch, like, yeah, I'm going to tell them how to set things up, but then I'm like, at some point, I'm going to be like, okay, from there, throw the bar as high as you can, right? And so there's still then sort of a subconscious, just try this task repeatedly and get good at it. There's still that element to it, even though there might be some coaching tips along the way. All right. So yes, there is definitely some need for analyzing and considering technique and working on drills that can help technique. A lot of movements, a lot of people are going to require that. I'm not trying to dismiss technique training as a whole. All right, let's see if I can hit this well. Oh, wow. Devastating.